Thank you for joining me back here on the final segment of today's show. And like we mentioned in the previous segment, if you were able to join me for that segment, we talked about the Buffalo Bills and areas where they can improve upon to not only get back to, facing off against the Chiefs potentially next year, but like finally beating them, finally getting past them and getting over this curse that's over them, honestly. But on the other side of things, the Chiefs, we're back here again a year later talking about the same team being in the same position, about to make even more history on the individual sort of thing, on the small scale sort of, aspect of it, but also in a macro view of it, right? They're the only team that has won back-to-back Super Bowls and now has made it back to the Super Bowl, back to the big game, right? All the other teams that have won back-to-back Super Bowls all lost in the conference championship. So the Chiefs already made history by getting to this point, but they want to finish their story and, stand alone in a different stratosphere in terms of elite level of dynasties and greatness if they're able to pull this off. But other than the fact that the Chiefs just appear as inevitable at this point, in the AFC at least, when you have Patrick, you have Andy Reid as your head coach, and their reputation as a dynasty, right? Because a lot of the times when you're just talking about a Patriots dynasty, a Chiefs dynasty, the fact that they build that reputation and that legacy is usually enough to just beat all these other teams, right? You just look at them and think, oh, it's the Patriots, right? They've won, they're known for this. That's usually enough to get them over the hump. So the Chiefs already have that going for them, right? Those are all their starting points at the beginning of this year and where we are right now. But I think there's three things that this year have really stood out to me when it comes to this team and how they're playing great football again, but how it just looks a little bit differently than it's done in years past. And one of the first things that I noticed about this team as one of these main factors, to kind of how they got back to the Super Bowl, was their ability to have all these weapons just be interchangeable, just be easily, brought in, brought out. I have a certain guy for a certain position, a certain play. He can fill it. But if not, I also have the ability to bring another guy in here. If he is out, all right, well, we have another guy that's able to do that exact same thing, fit into this offense, and also do their own little thing that kind of distinguishes them, but also mainly everybody is able to fill their role, whatever that role may be, right? It could be different. It could be the same as what Juju's doing, as the same as Xavier Worthy, right? But they're all able to fit into this offense very well and just be interchangeable parts to a well-oiled machine. And you can't really say the same for a lot of teams. Like when George Pickens doesn't play for the Steelers, that offense is probably not scoring more than 13 points. The Lions, with all their injuries and all their players going down on defense, that they're going to have to score a lot of points, right? Because that defense might not be able to stop a lot of these great teams. And then in Houston, once Stephon Diggs goes down, and especially when Nico Collins went down, I should say first, they looked a little bit off. Like it looked like everything was just a step slow, or the communication wasn't there. And those are only a couple examples, but it doesn't happen really with the Chiefs, right? Because you look at this team losing their starting running back and Isaiah Pacheco. You look at this team losing their number one wide receiver in Rashee Rice, losing Hollywood Brown before he even plays a snap for them in the regular season, and their left tackle position was not very good at all this year. But even still, you lose Pacheco, all right, we're going to bring in Kareem Hunt, and it looks like they didn't lose a step at all. They actually run the ball more this year than they ever did, and their starting running back at the beginning of the year was out, and they brought in this other guy, and they looked just as fine without him as they did with him. Then you look at their rookie wide receiver, Xavier Worthy, and stepping up in some big moments, getting more and more accustomed to this offense and having a bigger role because they need him to, right? If Rashee Rice was playing, maybe Xavier Worthy wouldn't be doing so much. But now that he has to step into that role, they were able to just, all right, Rashee Rice, you sit on the bench, you recover for as long as you need to. Xavier Worthy can just come in and do a very good job at what Rashee Rice was also doing. And, you look at Juju coming in, also having a role on this team, just out of nowhere, here or there, he'll do something and just contribute to a win. They also brought in DeAndre Hopkins, that maybe isn't as dominant as he once was, but he's able to, again, fit what this offense needs to do. All these pieces are rotatable. They're able to just be interchanged within each other, and it adds a lot to this team. And you look at even Joe Thuney, another one where he's the starting left guard, but because the left tackle position is really bad, they'll just kick him out there, and now this offensive line looks, for the most part, like their starting unit, right? Like there's no problem with this team. So even when you have games like the Buffalo game this past Sunday, where Travis Kelce really didn't have a monster game, it's always able to be somebody else. Somebody else is always able to step up, right? They're all, again, interchangeable. So that was one thing that I thought was very distinguishable from the Chiefs this year. Then you look at the main man, Patrick Mahomes, right? And his development, along with the development of this offense, I think, because mostly he is this offense, right? He is how this offense moves and executes and essentially runs, right? But I think the change that we've seen this year is a massive sign of maturity when a coach isn't attached to like a play style or a certain scheme or just how they want to operate their offense. I think a lot of times coaches are too bogged down with just doing it this way, and the Chiefs have shown that their ability to develop, to evolve from what they once were to what they are now has, again, shown a different level when it comes to them and everybody in the AFC. And in Kansas City, going from a young quarterback in Patrick, scoring 30-plus points per game, throwing like 60-yard bombs to Tyreek Hill, and now he's a lot more mature and he's a lot more calculated. All the drives are methodical. They're long drives, they're sustainable, they're consistent, and things like that, right? It's not just a flash in a pan sort of moment like it maybe once was. The games are a lot more low scoring, but the control and the pulse that they keep the games at is a lot more slower, and they're running it at the pace that they want to run it at. And a lot of teams can't really mess with that, right? And that's what I think the Chiefs do very well. And they have the most 10-plus play drives this year, and Patrick, you think about it, Patrick's not even in the Pro Bowl. He wasn't named to the All-Pro. He's not in any MVP conversations or anything like that because his numbers are really, they're also down this year, I should say. And he just scored, or the Chiefs just had their first 30-plus point game this past Sunday against the Buffalo Bills, and it doesn't even matter because they have now evolved to be this team that can score 23 points, but that's all they really need. If they win 23-22, 23-14, it's all the same to them. They don't really matter. They're past having to score 30-plus points a game. Now everything is a lot more of a higher quality than it is maybe an increased quantity in that respect. So I think that evolution of this offense and Patrick has been massive for them. Not to say that he can't, throw, these bombs still, and, that they can't just click it and have 30-plus points. It was pretty clear against the Bills, but they just don't need to, and they're perfectly fine with that. So that maturity is huge for them. And then just simply Steve Spagnuolo and this defense is a huge portion of this team, and it's something that I think they've really leaned into this year. And you see Chris Jones and Travis Kelce both giving Spags a lot of credit, much like he deserves. But again, it's not necessary for them to score 15, to allow, only 15 points per game, like maybe say the Chargers average during the season. They don't need their defense to have 3 sacks each game or a turnover each game or anything like that. But they're great against the run. They're very efficient and they're very disciplined when it comes to flags. They hardly ever get a flag thrown against them, and they're devastating when it comes to their scheme and their blitzing and things like that. And what's so impressive about that is that they don't need to make these completely shut down, strapped plays where they go out there and continually prove that they're this dominant unit. Yeah, they give up points. Yeah, they give up some long plays and some impressive drives. But when the moment comes down to it and Steve Spagnuolo has to call a certain play, or this defense has to stop a 4th and 1, a tush push, or they got to stand strong in the red zone, or if they have to get a turnover, they always seem to be able to do that in the big moments. And I think that's a huge credit to Spagnuolo, and the defense that he calls, but also everybody understanding that their role, their mission isn't to just be shut down. Again, it's just to win. So if the goal is just to win, you got to make the big plays. And they're synonymous with making big plays, right? Calling the perfect blitz, right? And throwing everything off. That's exactly what this team is. So it is some of the things that I've kind of pointed out in this segment as to why they're back here in the Super Bowl and why we continue to talk about them. But what's so tragic for a lot of teams is that this has been going on for so long, and Patrick is only like 29, 28 years old, and it's not like they're getting older, right? Other than Travis Kelce, I guess a little bit, but Xavier Worthy is only a rookie. Rashee Rice is only like in his 2nd or 3rd year. Trent McDuffie is another young player. Like this is going to go on for a little bit longer. It's not like it's coming to an end or anything like that with a three-peat, right? I don't even think it's crazy to start talking about 4 in a row, right? They got to win this one, obviously, but they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And it's a huge testament to them and how they continue to evolve and get better even when it looks like there's no room to. So that was something I felt like it was worth pointing out on today's show. But that will bring us to the end of today's episode of the Chip Shot Football Podcast. I want to thank you guys for joining me on today's show. And also, I want to remind you guys to like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast as well. And follow the network on all forms of social media. And if you want to see more content around the NFL and this show, check out both YouTube channels, the GSMC Podcast Network channel and the GSMC Sports Network channel, where you can see more of me as your host, covering some more NFL topics, some more discussions, breaking news, reviews, and previews, all leading up to the Super Bowl, obviously, which we will be covering. So until next time, join me again tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope you guys all have a good night, and I'll see you guys hopefully back here again tomorrow.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to